Okay, so people will say Adventists are wrong because Miller a Baptist, and I agree. Miller was wrong, therefore all Baptists are wrong about prophecy from henceforth. Or Hal Lindsey was a futurist or a dispensationalist, therefore dispensationalism is wrong because he made a prediction, et cetera, et cetera. That doesn't make any sense. Although those systems are wrong, in my opinion, ultimately. But people say that about the Adventists. Well, they predicted it. So therefore 2300 has to not be years because they predicted this coming in 1844. No, sorry. It doesn't work like that. They admitted that movement was wrong about what it predicted, but that doesn't mean the interpretive method is wrong. In fact, it has a prominent history as far as the interpretation. And when you see the connections between Daniel 8 and 9, it's actually necessary that the 2300 period doesn't end until into the New Covenant period. By the way, it connects to the other prophecies which are associated with Jesus' first coming. That's necessary when you understand, especially when you read it in the original language. And recognize what's going on with the Prince of the Covenant and the connectivity of the one God through all of salvation history. So I want to point this out. Is 2300 evenings and mornings from Daniel 8:14, is that being years? Is that a novel Adventist or false teaching sort of thing? Let's look. This is a secondary source. So if you want to prove me wrong, you'll have to do that. I haven't read every one of these scholars, so this is a secondary source, but I haven't seen a refutation of it. And I know that Adventists didn't invent this interpretive method, so there's a caveat warning there for you. Here's the different things people have said about the 2300 evening mornings from Daniel 8. Some is literal days, half days, 1150 literal days. Some people say it's 1150 literal days because they're evening and morning sacrifices. Some people just said, well, it reaches to the end of the world, which is also true, by the way, when you look at the connection of how you relate Daniel 8 and 9 and the visions. We have 2300 years. So out of the 66, that's what we have. Oh, by the way, apparently these were all surveyed leading up from 300 AD. Church people who wrote on this, commentated on this, up until the late 1700s. So prior to the Millerite movement and what people said after that became a thing, only people before that have no involvement with the Millerite movement. From 300 AD, possibly because early on they didn't know exactly how to interpret it because they're right in the middle of it, the prophecies. Literal days, 3 people out of 66, 21 of them. So 31 people commented on an interpretation of the 2300, giving their interpretation. So 35 didn't comment out of the 66 people who wrote on this, on Daniel 8. 31 gave an interpretation. Out of the 31, 21 interpreted them as years. 6 saying it reaches to the end of the world because it's to the time of the end. So is this some sort of novel Adventist made up nonsense? No. It's actually, if anything can be said to be a historic interpretation as years, it's the Adventist position. Certainly wasn't what Miller predicted, but you have to do your own studying to go deeper into that. So people say, well, Adventists are wrong. I guess the majority of the church was wrong too, which means everybody was wrong. So it's what? Does that mean the prophecy is wrong? You're going to try to go with majority because modern Christians today are futurists, which is untenable. Most of them have some sort of weird monstrosity of a classic theology like Calvinism, which does not fit at all. It doesn't work with futurism. And they've endorsed some kind of futurist interpretation, which is a dispensational idea, which actually technically can't be true which I've demonstrated from Daniel 7 or Daniel 9. If you think the 70th week is future, Jesus does not fulfill Daniel 9. It's impossible. That's a fact. 70 weeks are determined, one of which is making reconciliation for iniquity. That's the atonement. If you believe in penal substitution, if you believe in a substitutionary atonement, if you believe that Jesus fulfills the typology of the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, which is prominent through the New Testament. Jesus replaces the system of sacrifices and offerings. That was typing what he would do, like, the Passover, he dies on Passover, he rises on first fruits. The Spirit is sent on Pentecost. God instituted the earthly temple, which is a pattern after the one in heaven, which Jesus has ascended into. Jesus came to the Jew first, established the new covenant with Jews, with the first covenant people. It's their church. Okay, if you want to talk about being a replacement theology, if you think the church is a Gentile thing, well, hate to break it to you, the Great Commission was sent to all nations, and that was what Jesus established as a fulfillment of Hebrew prophecy for the Jew first, for the first covenant people first, and then they establish it. They bring the nations back to God through Christ and his church. So you think it's a Gentile church, which is something totally different? You don't understand the Bible, friend, at all. You don't understand historic Christianity. So I'm for the one church for all people, but it's not the Catholic Church. It's not the whatever church. It's a church in Christ and what he brought and established in the first century. But a day for a year is this historic majority interpretation because it predicted Christ's first coming. So there you go. So you can stop saying untrue things that keep people stuck in their false ideas, their false understanding about what other people believe, so that it keeps people from the truth. Don't say things that aren't true unless you know what you're talking about, which is basically nobody. God bless.